And a very good Wednesday morning. This is Kenneth Gruenfelder live on the GSMC Baseball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And as to remind you guys to tip or donate to the program and get your comments recognized, go to streamelements.com slash streamelements.com slash GSMC Sports Network. I was waiting for the ticker to pop up. To scroll across streamelements.com slash gsmc sports network / tip. Again, really helps the show. And then for bonus coverage materials that are not on the broadcast, go to patreon.com and search GSMC Sports Network. And with that, once again, welcome to another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We have a lot to talk about on today's show, as we normally do. We'll go through the latest news and headlines to start off the show, as we typically do. A little bit different today. We'll go more specific things today. So in the second segment, we are going to talk about the Baltimore Orioles and devote a segment to them because they had another big win last night in Houston as they're trying to clinch the AL East. So we'll get into that. And then in the third segment, we'll take a look at the AL West race. So obviously the Astros will be a part of that conversation after taking another loss to the Orioles. We'll talk about the Mariners and the Rangers as well and what they did. So we'll go through their scores and what the standings are currently in that division. And then in the final segment, we will take a look at the NL Wildcard race, go through the games involving those teams from last night. And that will be it. And yeah, so a little bit different of a show, and my dog just scared me, so she's barking. I guess because my dad went out, so I guess he's back now, or again either that or the mailman, somebody dropping off something. I don't know, but yeah, so that's a great way to open up the show. But yeah, right before I got on, there was a trade done in our fantasy football league. And it was a big head scratcher, to say the least. I'm not going to say what the trade was because I don't want to. Well, I'll say what the trade was. I won't say who did it. But one of our friends just traded DK Metcalf for Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt just got signed by the Cleveland Browns because Nick Chubb is out with a season-ending knee injury. And if you watched the Monday night game the other night, it was a very gruesome injury, and it was the same knee that he injured in 2015. Great running back. A lot of people say he's one of the more consistent running backs in football. But yeah, so everybody was talking about that, and it was pretty funny to watch all the reactions right before I got on. So, but yeah, that's a little fantasy football thing, and make sure to check out the fantasy football podcast, which is on tonight later in the day. Austin, the host, does a great job with that. So that's a little fantasy football plug right there for a fellow GSMC Sports Network host. So with that, let's get right into the first segment, which is going over the latest news and headlines. So obviously the Orioles are going to be a part of the discussion in the next segment, just talking about them in general, because I feel like it is appropriate to give them some love, and it'll be like that with a lot of teams. There'll be segments where I just talk about one team for a certain reason, whether it's a playoff team or a team that was a pretty big disappointment, because there have been a lot of disappointments as well, and we will go over the Padres and the White Sox and some of those other teams, even the Yankees as well. And listen, I for me being a Yankee fan, I think so far I've done it. I mean, I would mention the Yankees here and there, but I haven't really talked about them a lot. But there's good reason for that. So, but yeah, the Orioles, they had a big win last night against the Astros again. This time winning 9-5 in Houston. So they've taken the first two games of this series, and now they're at 95 wins on the season. So I'll go into more detail with that when we get into the next segment. But I mean, listen, I was saying how I like the Astros' chances better to get back to the World Series, but right now, how the Orioles have been playing, and especially what they've done, winning in Houston the first two games, which is big. That's pretty impressive. So, yeah, that's again, we'll touch upon more of that in the second segment. Another thing is with regarding Ronald Acuna. So he homered twice last night, and he has a chance to have a 40-40 season. And I think right now, he's probably the guy that's going to win MVP. Because if you look at his stolen bases, I think is one of the biggest things that like separates him from Mookie Betts. He's got 67 stolen bases on the season. But right behind him at 61 is Ruiz on the A's. But I just think that's a big stat when you're looking at Ronald Acuna's numbers. And he's at 39 home runs. He's got 100 RBIs and over 1,000 OPS. So I think right now he is the front runner for MVP. You got Mookie Betts, and you also have Matt Olson, who has 52 home runs and 130 RBIs. But Acuna leads the league in runs scored, in on base percentage. It's in hits. I think it's going to be him. It's going to be him. And listen, he's going to get to 40. And could he get to 50 home runs? I mean, it's going to be close, but I think he'll probably fall short, just like Matt Olson's going to probably fall short of 60. But still, having those two guys in your lineup is huge. And Ronald Acuna is doing something amazing, and it's definitely something to keep an eye on. So then, in other news as well, moving on from that, so Shohei Ohtani underwent elbow surgery Tuesday morning, and it was a successful surgery. So it's being reported that he will be back by opening day. He'll be playing on opening day in next year, and he'll be hitting, and then he will be pitching again in 2025. So that's good news to hear. So we'll see how Ohtani bounces back, and where. Well, the other thing is, where is he going to play next year? That remains to be seen. But it's definitely really encouraging that the surgery went well. He's going to be at least hitting next year, and then the following year he'll be back to pitching. So we'll see how that goes. But again, it's going to be something to watch in the off season, and we'll be covering that a lot. All the rumors and things like that. So yeah, that's news on the Ohtani front. Then another thing, Blake Snell had another great performance last night. And actually, so I was watching MLB Network last night, and they had it was like a red zone, NFL red zone type thing going on MLB Network. They had the quad box going. They had games, 4 games going on at the same time, and they would jump around. And one of the things that I heard while listening to that was that in his last 21 starts, and 21 straight starts, including last night, Blake Snell has given up 3 runs or less in his last, I guess you could say now, 22 starts. That's unbelievable. And the Padres, well, he didn't pick up the win, but the Padres won 2-0. They won in the bottom of the 9th, getting 2 runs. I think right now, yeah, he's the front runner for Cy Young, and we talked about it yesterday. Spencer Strider had another solid start for the Braves, and actually Zach Gallen, and I've been saying Gallen for the last week and a half now. Zach Gallen going into the game last night, 11-2 at home with a 2.18 ERA, and the Diamondbacks ended up losing that game to the Giants. So that kind of hurt his chances. So really, yeah, right now you got to look at Blake Snell, and he's right now the front runner. So we'll see how it plays out, but yeah, I think at this point it is him. And you got Justin Steele as well, so he could have something to say about that. Again, it's going to come down to the last week, and if there's a hiccup, that could better somebody else's chances. But I think it's safe to say that Blake Snell is probably the favorite and is probably going to win it at this particular point in time. But another impressive outing by him, to say the least. Yeah, Blue Jays picked up a win last night against the Yankees. The Cubs picked up a win last night against the Pirates, so that was huge. But again, we'll go into more details with that in the later segments. But yeah, that's and the Marlins, they got a big win yesterday against the Mets. So yeah, that's pretty much it with all the headlines. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff did happen last night. I did take some time to watch some of the games. I did watch. I had the Yankees and the Blue Jays on for a little bit, but that game was pretty much over. Once the Blue Jays took a 2-1 lead, it was a snooze fest if you're a Yankee fan. So now just waiting for the team to officially be eliminated from the playoffs. And they got a lot of things they need to do in the offseason that I hope they do. But the Blue Jays, I mean, they're a good team. It's just they're inconsistent. That's the thing. A lot of these teams are inconsistent. They're hot, then they're cold. That's why it's going to be. It's really tough to predict where. Some of these teams are going to end up. I mean, I didn't guarantee anything. I would say, oh, this team, I think I'm leaning towards them not making it, or this team not making it. But then all of a sudden, when I say that, then the team gets hot. So, yeah, I don't really know. It's tough to predict, and especially now with with all these teams in the National League tied for or close to having that last wild card spot. It's going to be tough to predict. And yeah, see, my chats are still blowing up over this trade in our fantasy league. So that was a funny thing to come on for, because I'll be honest, I've made some bad trades over the last couple of years in our dynasty league that we do. So it's nice to see the attention be put on somebody else. But yeah, bad with predictions, bad with trades. That's basically me. So also, if you're a gambling person, if you like to bet, don't take my advice on anything. Although I've been good with the football spreads so far this year, so that's good. Football, I think, is probably the sport that I'm probably the best at when it comes to predictions. Well, not predictions, but like with spreads, and and money lines. Because baseball is very hard. Because listen, you got Zach Gallen pitching last night against the Giants. You think, and he's good at home, very good at home. Hey, that should be a win, right? No, it's not. They end up losing. Well, oh wait, no, they did win. Never mind. I don't know. I thought in the beginning he didn't pitch well. Because the Giants hit Jock Peterson hit a home run off of him, and Jock Peterson actually, that was another thing. He was 2 for 21 against Gallen going into the game, and he hit a home run off of him. The Giants went up 2-0. Lamonte Wade Jr. hit a triple, sac fly, and then Jock Peterson hit a home run. So they were down 2-1 already, and then the Diamondbacks put up a 5 spot in the next 2 innings. They put up 1 in the bottom of the first, then they got 4 in the second, 2 in the fourth, 1 in the fifth. But the Giants also did put up 2 runs in the top of the fifth. Yeah, so he gave up 4. Yeah, so he was like okay. He did pick up the win, but yeah, 4 earned runs, 6 hits. So yeah, he still didn't pitch that good, but he did end up picking up the win. But yeah, the Diamondbacks, they did get the win, but he didn't pitch how he usually does at home. But yeah, I know. I guess because I really only did pay attention to the beginning of the game. So, but yeah, he didn't pitch the best. But we'll talk more about that in the next segment. So with that, we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we are going to talk about the Baltimore Orioles and the season they're having and how they've gotten to this point. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And for the second segment of today's show, we are going to talk about the Baltimore Orioles. And I was really impressed. I have been impressed with the fact that they've gone into Houston and now have taken the first two games. Now, obviously, this is the regular season, but these are big games that they're playing in right now because you got the Rays that are right behind them, 2.5 games out. Right now, the Orioles are at 95 wins. They've won 4 in a row, and so it's gonna be tight. They got to continue to keep winning these games and get themselves close to that magic number and clinch this division. Because after the Astros, then they got the Guardians, they got the Nationals, and then they got the Red Sox. So it's kind of a soft ending to the season. So I think at this point, you could say that the Orioles right now have the upper hand, and the Rays, they play the Blue Jays twice, and the Blue Jays are playing to clinch get into the wild card. So it's tougher for the Rays because the Blue Jays. Listen, they're an inconsistent team, but if they're right, they are a very good team. They are a very talented team. So that's something to keep in mind. But right now, I would lean towards the Orioles based off of the remaining schedule. But listen, you got to give the Orioles a lot of credit. And to go into Houston and to win these first two games in the way that they have. The other night, Cedric Mullins hits that big 3-run home run in the ninth inning off of the Astros closer Ryan Presley. And then you have last night, they win 9-5 in Houston. I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy, but they've gone in and they've played really well in these two games. But yeah, so with the Orioles, they had a lot of rough years before this. So I do have a graphic for today. So this is from baseballreference.com because I wanted to put up the records over the last several years. So and it got cut off, but the last time that they made the playoffs was 2016. I think they won 89 games. So, and then this was kind of like the downward spiral after that. So in 2017, they went 75 and 87. And then in 2018, they went 47 and 115. And that was Buck Showalter's last year as manager of the Orioles. So that was rough. And that was pretty much the end of, the Machado, Chris Davis, that era. I mean, you still had a couple of those guys, on the team. Because I think, because Machado went to the, when did he go? He went to the, he got traded to the Dodgers in 2018 when they went to the World Series, and then he went to the Padres. I forget about that, honestly. Machado playing for the Dodgers because it was so brief. But yeah, then in 2019 they went 54 and 108. Then the COVID season, 25 and 35. 2021, 52 and 110. And then last year is when they started to turn it around. They played better baseball in the second half. They got themselves to over 500. They were kind of, for a little bit, in the mix for the one of the wild card spots, but they fell short. And then this year, I mean, obviously the record's changed, but I mean, what a difference, that a few years makes. And one of the big things that they did was they brought in Mike Elias, who was with the Astros after the 2018 season. Around the I think they brought him in for the 2018 season, but he was there, and he's been part of this rebuild. And Brandon Hyde, he's been the new manager. He's been there for a little bit, and they're responsible for getting players like Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson. Adley Rutschman was the first overall pick in the 2019 draft, and then Gunnar Henderson was a second round pick, and Gunnar Henderson might win AL Rookie of the Year. And then you got Anthony Santander, who's been a productive player for them. He was on those teams that were not very good for a while, and now he's part of a team that's going to the playoffs. And so really a credit to the front office and the manager putting this team together. And then obviously you have the bullpen with Cano back there, and then Batista, who hopefully is coming back for the playoffs. So I mean, if you're an Orioles fan, you really got to be thrilled with how this team has been playing. And they went out and they brought in Kyle Gibson to be part of that rotation, who was with the Phillies previously. You trade for Jack Flaherty, who really hasn't been what they hoped for. Because I think when I looked at his stats the other day, I think he had like a 7 ERA with the Orioles. But Bradish has been good. Yeah, Kyle Gibson right now. I mean, Kyle Gibson's won a lot of games, 14-9, but he's got a 5 ERA. But yeah, last year with the Phillies, he had a 5 ERA too. He was 10-8. But he's going to be a key component in the playoffs. You have Dean Kramer, who's 12-5, and he's got an ERA over 4. So the starting pitching, like, they've won a lot of games because the offense you got to look at the lineup for the Orioles. I mean, the Orioles score a lot of runs, and the Orioles. But the other thing that also helps is they got a bullpen that's top 5 in all of baseball, really. Because if you look at if we go to let's go to team totals. So if you go to batting average, let's go to batting average. So yeah, the Orioles are in the top 5 there. They are, well, in home runs. They're, where are they in home runs? Well, they're middle of the pack. They got 180. But OPS, they're top 10. But yeah, they are a very good team. They're top 10 in RBIs. Yeah, they're a good hitting team. It's just the pitching. The pitching is a little bit of an issue for me. But you know what, the lineup still is solid, and the rotation is the thing that worries me. That's what worries me at this particular moment. Now, that's not to say that in the playoffs things can change. I mean, you also have Mike Bowman as well. He's 10-1 with a 3.82 ERA. So he's been good for them. He's been solid. So yeah, I mean, they got guys in their rotation and in their bullpen. It's really gonna all come down to how good their bullpen is gonna be and their rotation, because their bullpen, teams have won. The teams that have won have really good bullpens. Like, most notably, you go back to the Royals. They had a really good bullpen. The Astros have had really good starting pitching. But the Orioles, they have a really good bullpen with the 2 guys in the back. And towards the end, they're 8th and 9th inning guys. So with that, and combined with how their young players in their lineup and how those guys have been this year, I mean, we'll see. I mean, you got Santander and Henderson. They both have 27 home runs. Adley Rutschman's got 19. Mountcastle has 18. Hayes has 16. Cedric Mullins has 15. Yeah, I mean, listen, the lineup's solid up and down. They got a nice balanced lineup, which is something that I wish, the team that I root for, I wish they had a lineup like that, but that's not the case. Listen, they got like that, even though they're going to finish in first place and finish with a better record than this team, but right now they're like the 2017 Yankees, a young team that exceeded expectations and can go far in the playoffs. This team will go far in the playoffs. I got to see now if these two teams, between them and the Astros, if they match up in the playoffs, how is that going to be? Because the playoffs are a whole different animal, and the Astros know how to play in the postseason. But listen, you got to give the Orioles credit, because these are important games right now, like I mentioned before, because you got the Rays right behind you, so you got to win all these games, because one slip up and before you know it, you might not be in first place anymore. So But yeah, last night they defeated the Astros 9-5. Um, so we'll kind of go through like the box score a little bit. So Gunnar Henderson had a hit and an RBI. He went 1-for-5. Santander went 2-for-5. Ryan O'Hearn. Ryan O'Hearn, another guy. This guy was on the Royals. He's hitting 311 and an 858 OPS. So he's been a good find for them. Austin Hayes, 2-for-5 with 4 RBIs. Mullins had a hit, went 1-for-4. Kerstead, he went 1-for-4. I think he hit a home run last night, or was it the night before that? Well, let's go through the scoring summary. So Ryan O'Hearn hit a 2-run home run. Kyle Tucker hit a 2-run home run for the Astros, make it 2-2. Austin Hayes, a 3-run home run. Bregman had a home run. James McCann, an RBI single. Gunnar Henderson, an RBI single. Yainer Diaz, he hit a home run. Austin Hayes hit another home run. Yeah, Kerstead hit his second home run. Kjerstad? I can't pronounce that name. It's harder to pronounce than Zach Gallen, which I was saying Gallen for the last, like I said, for the last week. So, but yeah, a lot of power from the Orioles last night. Hayes had 2 home runs, like I said. But yeah, this lineup is, you look up and down the lineup. The OPS is, the bottom of the lineup, Mateo and McCann, they got OPSs below 700. But, the guys at the top, that's where you're going to get your production from, from Santander, Gunnar Henderson. So, yeah, listen, this team could go far in the playoffs. This team definitely can. I don't know if they're going to win the World Series. I wouldn't say they are the team to do that. Can they get to it, can they get to the World Series? Yeah, I think they can. It's just, I worry about the Astros. That's the team. And like I said, until they are defeated, I'm not going to count them out. And that's just from experience. That's from years of, pain and misery that this team has inflicted upon me. Whether it's ruining my first playoff experience in person, preventing my team from going to the World Series countless times, and it's they gotta go out, and the Orioles have to go out and beat them in the playoffs, and then I got to see it to believe it. Until that happens, the Astros are going to be the team, for me at least, that's going to represent the American League in the World Series, because I don't think. But again, there have been teams that go on magical runs, and that can happen. And I hope the Orioles are that team that does that. It's just, I worry about the Astros. So with that, we are going to take another quick break. And then when we come back, we are going to talk about the AL West race and talk about the teams that are fighting for that division crown. And that will be the third part of today's show. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And for the third segment of today's show, we are going to talk about the AL West race, talk about how the teams did last night, and where that currently stands at this moment. So, yeah, a little bit different of a show, because I know when I go over the scores, there's a lot of games that really don't have a lot of meaning, especially at this time of the year. So I'm trying to key in on the key races, such as this one. The AL East is another one, but we just talked about the Orioles. And then obviously you have the NL Wildcard, which is hectic, and more stuff happened with that yesterday. So we'll get into that. That'll be the next segment. And actually, let me do this in the beginning of the segment before I get into what we're going to talk about here. So once again, as always, to tip or donate to the program and get your comments recognized, go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it's on the bottom, as you can see on the ticker. It really helps the show. And then, for bonus coverage materials that are not on this broadcast, go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network. So, now let's get back into the third segment here, which is talking about the AL West division race. So, obviously, we just talked about the Astros losing the first two games of this series against the Orioles. So right now, they've lost 2 in a row. They're 4-6 in their last 10 games. And right now, they're a half game up on both the Mariners and the Rangers. So the Astros got to be careful here because, they need to win tonight. This is a big game tonight. They need to win that because, if they don't, they could be finding themselves right now. They could find themselves in a fighting for that wild card spot. Now, again, it's always changing, so it's not, it's a big deal because you don't want to be there, but it's also not a big deal because you still got time, and you'd be a half game back. So, but yeah, they lost 9-5 yesterday, and actually, let's actually take a look at their remaining schedule here. So, obviously, they have one more game against the Orioles, and then after that, they go on and they play Kansas City for 3 games, the 22nd through the 24th. Then they play them. Now, this is the big series right here, and one of my friends was talking about this yesterday. So they play the Mariners Monday through Wednesday next week in Seattle. So that's a big series. And then they finish the season against the Diamondbacks, which is not going to be easy because the Diamondbacks are going to be fighting for that wild card spot in the National League. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit tough. You got the Royals for 3 games; those should be 3 wins. But then again, they lost 2 out of 3 to the Royals. So, yeah, it's tonight's a big game. You got Bradish on the mound against Christian Javier. Bradish has had a very good season for the Orioles, 11-7 with the 3.12 ERA. And Christian Javier had a great start to the season, but he's 9-4 with a 4.74 ERA. So, yeah, this is big for the Astros. They got to go out and they got to deliver here because they could find themselves looking up at a couple of teams in the standings. And right now, you got the Mariners playing the A's, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, yeah, they got to win tonight. The Astros really have to win tonight. And then, so the Mariners, they won 7-2 last night. Luis Castillo pitched very well. 14-7 now on the season with the 3.06 ERA. So we'll go through the scoring here. So you had Kelnick getting a RBI single in the top of the second and another one in the top of the fourth. J.P. Crawford had an RBI double in the top of the seventh. Raleigh had an RBI single, make it 4-0. Teoscar Hernandez had an RBI double, so that put them up 5-0. And then J.P. Crawford hit his 16th home run of the season. So Mariners looking good at this moment, obviously playing against the A's, but that was a big win for them, because you got the Rangers right there. Yeah, I mean, listen, right now you got 4 teams. You have right now the Astros. They have the division at the moment. You have the Rangers, the Blue Jays, and the Mariners. Those are the 4 teams right there, where things are not set yet. Because the Rays or the Orioles is going to win the East, so one of them is going to have the best record in baseball and have home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the American League. And then one of them is going to have the top wild card spot. But then the other 4 teams, the 3 AL West teams and the Blue Jays, they're all fighting for, the the wild card spots and their division. So we'll see. Blue Jays have been good though. They've won 4 in a row, and it wouldn't surprise me if they go out and they sweep the Yankees and just officially knock the Yankees out, because it's just been that kind of season for them, as I mentioned before. But yeah, so going through the other scores, well, the final score here is with the Rangers and the Red Sox. So the Red Sox were up 3-1 going into the fifth inning, and then the Rangers came to life. It looked like another loss was on the way for the Rangers, but they pulled out the win. Adolis Garcia hit his 35th home run on the season. He's had a great year for them. Yeah, so let's actually look at his stats. So he was an All-Star this year. Yeah, so looking at his stats, so he's batting .243 on the season, 35 home runs, 101 RBIs, and an .819 OPS. And let's compare his stats. Well, actually, his stats from last year were pretty good too. 27 home runs, 101 RBIs, 250, 300 on base, 456 slugging, and a 756 OPS. So batting average is a little bit lower than it was last year, but the on-base percentage is up, the slugging is up, and the OPS is up, and that's what you want to pay more attention to. And obviously he's got more home runs than he had last year at this point, so he's been very good for them. Corey Seager's been amazing for them. Simeon's been solid. Their rookie as well for the Rangers has been good. Josh Young, right? That's how you pronounce it. I don't know why it's not taking me to his player profile, because I want to look at his stats. I don't know why MLB's doing this to me. But yeah, he's been good. He's got an 805 OPS. Yeah, like the lineup for the Rangers is very good. It's just the pitching that you're a little bit concerned about, especially, with Max Scherzer getting hurt, DeGrom being hurt. But, Evaldi, 5 innings, 3 earned runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. Chapman picked up the win in this game. But yeah, so Adolis Garcia, he hit his 35th home run. It kind of went off topic with because I was going through the scoring. So Justin Turner had a ground out that led to a run being scored. Yoshida, he had a 2-run single, so that made it 3-1 Red Sox. And then Simeon had an RBI single in the bottom of the 5th. Jonah Heim, he had an RBI double to tie the game. Tavares, RBI single for the Rangers to take the lead. Verdugo on a fielder's choice tied the game. Yeah, Josh Young singled. He drove in a run. And then Jonah Heim, he had a walk that put them up 6-4. So, yeah, Rangers pick up a win. It looked like it was going to be another game where they just were going to fall flat again, but that's a big win for them. So they improved to 83 and 68. So right now, Rangers and Mariners are tied for the last wild card spot. The Blue Jays are a game up on them, and then you have the Astros that hold a half-game lead over the Rangers and the Mariners for the AL West race. And yeah, we're getting close to that big series this weekend, Mariners and Rangers, and yeah, it's gonna be a great series. And actually, let's see, do they have the pitching matchups for those yet? Let's see. I mean, they might have them on another app, but I'm going to see if they have them on MLB. So nothing at the moment. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. But yeah, this is one of those things in baseball right now that you got to pay close attention to, and especially because you're going to have these teams playing each other to end the year. Astros, they play the Mariners one more time, and then, like I said, they play the Diamondbacks, who are going to probably be fighting for that wild card spot still. So, but who is it going to be? I mean, I'm still like I said in the last segment, I'm not going to count out the Astros. I think they are going to be the team that wins the division. But the Rangers, it could be anybody really. It's going to be anybody, and these teams are all playing each other, so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. We're getting close. There's a couple weeks left, and Yeah, and then we'll finally see how everything is all set up with the playoffs, because it really is coming down to that division. The Central is wrapped up basically. It's going to be the Orioles or the Rays for the top wild card spot and the division in the AL East, so they're going to finish with the best record. But it's really the AL West you got to figure out. The wild card spots are still up for grabs. Um, you know, and I keep saying it. It's all going to come down to who's hot at the right time, because it's a roller coaster. It's always changing. It's always changing, and injuries can happen too, which you hope doesn't, because injuries just ruin all sports in general. When you see a lot of guys get hurt, and so we'll just have to wait and see, but especially with these teams playing each other, it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. And yeah, it's coming up this weekend, starting this weekend with the Rangers and the Mariners playing the first game of 7 over the next week or so. They play 7 times, and that's going to determine who's in and who's not. And heck, the Blue Jays, they could find themselves, struggling again, and they're out of the playoff picture. But I don't know. Anything can happen. I mean, look at what I said. I said the Rangers are probably going to be might be the team on the outside looking in when it's all said and done. And they play better. They've been playing better. So they swept the Blue Jays. Then they got swept by the Guardians, and it's just like it's a roller coaster. So it's gonna be who's hot at the right time, and yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun down the stretch with these teams all fighting for it, and that's what makes baseball great this time of year, is seeing these teams playing each other, because it's basically the playoffs right now for a lot of these teams, because you got so many wild card spots now. Divisions are up for grabs. So yeah, this is the best time of the year, and then once we get to the playoffs, that's when things get really serious, and I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, that's basically the AL West race talk for today. So then we're going to get into something even crazier, which I've talked about, over the course of the last couple weeks now, is the NL Wildcard race. And, we'll go over the scores with that from last night, and how the teams performed and where the standings are currently with that. And then that will basically be it for the show for today. And then, of course, after that, I will record the Patreon for this episode as well. So that'll be right after I'm done here streaming the live show. But, let me know what you guys think about the AL West race. Who do you guys have winning it? What are you guys most excited about with the postseason coming up? What teams do you think are going to perform well in that? Just let me know, and I want to try to answer every comment that I possibly can. So with that, we are going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we are going to talk about something that we talk about a lot, the NL Wildcard race. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, and for the final segment of today's show, we are going to talk about the NL Wildcard race, go over the scores involving those teams from yesterday, and where everything currently stands at this point. So, like I said, I was on MLB Network last night. Well, not on it, but I was watching MLB Network last night because I did have the Yankees on, but once I knew the game was pretty much over and they weren't going to do anything, I turned it off. I'm like, let me go see what's going on with the other scores, see what MLB has. And usually when I watch them, like they'll flip through different games, but this time they had, like I said, they had like the quad box going. It was like it was red zone basically, and yeah, at certain points they put on the Blue Jays Yankees game, so I was forced to watch it. I changed the channel to get away from it, but yeah, so I got to see Alejandro Kirk hit a home run to make it like 6-1. They ended up losing. It ended up being 7-1, but yeah, it's just been a rough year, and hopefully this is the last one that they have for a while. But who knows? But let's get into more important things. So regarding the NL Wildcard race, so I mean, it's crazy right now. It's mayhem because you have so many teams that are neck and neck with each other. You don't even know what it's going to end up being at the end of the year. So we'll go through the scores and then we'll talk about the standings. So, the Cubs, they've had a rough stretch, 2-8 in their last 10, back home at Ridley, get right game against the Pirates, and they came out with their hair on fire. They scored 2 runs in the bottom of the first, 2 in the bottom of the second, 1 in the bottom of the third, 1 in the bottom of the sixth, and then they end up scoring 8 runs in the bottom of the 8th. They end up winning 14-1 over the Pirates. And so we'll go through the scoring summary. So Dansby Swanson, he started off the game with a 2-run home run to put them up 2-0. Then you had Patrick Wisdom, he had an RBI double. Horner, he had a sacrifice fly. So that put them up 4-0. Saiai Suzuki hit a home run, his 19th of the year, put them up 5-1. Alexander Canario, now not Candelario, he got hurt, so he's not playing at the moment. But Alexander Canario, he had an RBI double, also had a grand slam, and Cody Bellinger hit his 26th. So I was talking about how he was struggling. He hit his 26th home run of the season, a 3-run home run, and then Jared Young had an RBI triple, so that made it 14-1. Excuse me. So yeah, the Cubs, they had a performance that was much needed. But yeah, I think Canario, I think, is somebody that they literally just brought him up, and grand slam in his first game. Not a bad thing for your major league debut, and especially at Wrigley Field in a playoff race. It's huge, and so Cubs get a big win there. And the pitching did very well. Only gave up 1 run yesterday. So yeah, much needed win for the Cubs, as they're trying to get themselves back on the right track. They're at 79-72 now on the season. So then some of the other games. So you had the Giants and the Diamondbacks playing each other. I talked about that briefly. Zach Gallen picked up his 16th win on the season, improving to 16-8 with a 3.6 ERA. But yeah, it got off to a rough start, as I talked about. Lamonte Wade Jr. started off the game with a triple. Then there was a sac fly. Then Jock Peterson hit a solo home run. So before you knew it, the Diamondbacks were down 2-0. And as I did mention before, so Zach Gallen was 11-2 with a 2.18 ERA at home entering that game, and Jock Peterson was 2 for 21 against Zach Gallen, and he ended up hitting a home run. But yeah, then the Diamondbacks, they put up an 8 spot, and they ended up beating the Giants 8-4, improving to 80-72 on the season. Alex Cobb for the Giants ended up leaving the game with an injury. That's some news there. But yeah, Tommy Pham, after they were down 2-0, he had a force out that scored a run. Corbin Carroll had a 2-run double, so that was huge, putting him up 3-2. And then there was a throwing error that led to 2 runs being scored to put them up 5-2. Then Ketel Marte, he had an RBI single that scored a couple of runs So that put them up 7-2. And then Giants tacked on a couple runs, and then there was a sac fly by Moreno that put the Diamondbacks up 8-4, and that ended up being the final score. So that was a big win for them. Then you had the Marlins playing the Mets, and I did catch the ending of that game. So it was 3-1 Marlins the whole time. We got to the ninth inning, so that's when I was really watching. So yeah, but before that, so Lindor started off the game with the single that scored a run. Josh Bell had an RBI double. Xavier Edwards had an RBI single. Garrett Hampson, he had an RBI single as well. So that put them up 3-1. Then you're in the ninth inning, and Nimmo comes up to the plate, and he ropes an RBI double into right center. That scored 2 runs. So that ended up tying the game into the bottom of the ninth inning. And then, so that wasn't good for the Marlins. But then you had Jake Berger come up with guys on base, and he laced an RBI single into center field, and that ended up being the game. Marlins win in walk-off fashion 4-3, and Jake Berger was the hero there. One of my favorite players in the league just because of his name, and yeah, like, since and he was good with the White Sox, and I think this was a good trade that the Marlins made. But yeah, so in 44 games with the Marlins, he's got 8 home runs, 24 RBIs. He's batting .310, .366 on-base percentage, .524 slugging, and an .890 OPS. So that was a very good trade that the Marlins made. And, he's going to be a big component for them going down the stretch. The Marlins want to get themselves into the playoffs. But a couple of news on them as well on the injury front. So Luis Arraez actually hurt himself in pregame warm-ups, they were saying, before the game. So he didn't play. And if I don't know the extent of the injury. Hopefully it's not too serious and he's back because, this guy's going to win the batting title. How he's been this season. Right now he's batting .354 on the season. I mean, he was batting .400 at one point, but then obviously it wasn't going to be he wasn't going to maintain that because that's just like impossible. I mean, could it have happened? I mean, who knows? But he got him. But .354 is still very good. But yeah, he's been great for them. 10 home runs, 69 RBIs on the season, 865 OPS. But yeah, .354 batting average is just ridiculous. And it really does make you wonder why the Twins let this guy go. I don't know. I mean, there's always a reason behind it. I don't know, but I don't know why. I feel like the Twins should have kept him because they, I think they could use him this year. I mean, I know they're going to win the division, but I mean, I feel like that's a player you shouldn't let go. But whatever. But yeah, that was a big win for the Marlins. So yeah, so Arraez is hurt. Also Alcantara, it's gonna be tough on. It's gonna be tough on if he comes back because he's dealing with an injury right now, a forearm injury, I believe. So we'll just have to wait on that. But big win for the Marlins. So now when you look at the wild card standings, so you got the Phillies at the top. They lost 9-3 to the Braves yesterday. You got the Diamondbacks at 80 and 72. You got the Cubs at 79 and 72. So right now, and the Diamondbacks have won 4 in a row. Cubs got a big win last night, as I said. Marlins are a half game back. Reds are 1 game back. The Giants are 3 games back. Got the Padres 5.5 games back. They still got a chance. But yeah, that's how it is right now in the National League, and it's gonna, again, like I talked about with the AL West, it's gonna be a roller coaster. You have no idea who it's gonna be. I mean, I said it was gonna be the Reds and the Marlins, or the Marlins. Right now, the Diamondbacks, they hold that second spot. Cubs right now have the third, so they got to be careful, or they could find themselves on the outside looking in. And I thought that I really thought that they were, a lock to get the second spot, but then they went 2-8 and they're in 10 games, and now they sit where they are right now. And you got all these teams. Giants are kind of their hopes are kind of slipping away right now. Now they're 3 games back, so I think that's kind of tough for them to come back from. But I think really you just have to look at the 4 teams: the Cubs, the Diamondbacks, Marlins, and Reds. Now, can the Giants right the ship and get themselves right back in it? It's possible, because it seems like something's always changing with this, So, but they got to turn it around soon, otherwise they're going to be eliminated. But they got 9 games until they're eliminated, so they got to win games, and they got to hope that teams ahead of them don't win, because that only makes that number go down lower. But yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, the last wild card spot, whoever gets it's not going to get to 90 wins, most likely. Because, yeah, I mean, the Cubs aren't going to go undefeated the rest of the way. The Diamondbacks aren't. I mean, well, Marlins can't win 90 games. Reds have 74 losses. Giants have 75. And the Padres actually, looking at them, they've won 6 in a row now. But the Padres, a lot of those one-run games that they've lost, if they would have just flipped some of those, they'd be right there. Now, they still have a chance. It's a very slim chance, but I don't see it happening. But that's one of those teams that I'll have to touch upon, and go over, what went wrong and things like that. But yeah, that's the NL Wildcard race. And, we'll see what happens tonight as these teams continue their series. The Cubs, against the Pirates, they should, take that series. The Pirates, they got off to a hot start, but they haven't been a good team this year. Diamondbacks, I think they should take the series against the Giants. And then, the Reds and the Marlins. I mean, the Marlins are playing the Mets, so they should do well against them. Right now, you got Perez and Kodai Senga tonight, so that's going to be, there's going to be a tough matchup again for the Marlins. And then you have, Justin Steele's pitching tonight for the Cubs, so that's good. I think the Cubs should win. The Marlins, it's going to be tough with Senga on the mound. You got Logan Webb and for the Giants, and then you got Merrill Kelly going for the Diamondbacks, who's 11-7 on the season. And then the Twins and the Reds, they continue their series tonight. You got Ober against Green tonight. So the Reds need to win if they want to keep pace, with this wild card race. But yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to the wild card race. We'll go into it more again tomorrow, recap the games, how the teams did. And yeah, that's pretty much the show for today. And like I said, I will record the Patreon right after this, so that will be out. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the show today. I thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow again, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so make sure to tune in for that on this channel. And, on both YouTube channels, they stream on the GSMC Sports Network and the GSMC Podcast Network. So, yeah, it was a great show as always. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure to leave a comment, subscribe, and like the video. Also, the show from yesterday is up and broken down into 4 segments. So if you missed anything, you could go check those out so you don't have to skip around on the live stream to try to look for them. They're all right there. They're all on both channels. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you guys for watching. And I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.